the Kansas State situation. It just proved to me. It just proved to everybody how good Tulane was because Tulane got robbed. They should have won that game.
Greetings and salutations, and welcome to the Odd Coaches Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Keith Adams. And on today's Throwdown Thursday edition, we'll talk week 2 of college football. In segment 1, we'll talk about the Power 4 and Notre Dame. Segment 2, we'll talk about the Group of 5. And in segment 3, we'll talk about things strictly for entertainment purposes only. Let's jump into it. Power 4, SEC, big boy football. Texas and Georgia are on a different level. Good wins by Georgia, Texas, Ole Miss, Tennessee, and Missouri. Lackluster performances by Alabama and Oklahoma, and bad losses by Arkansas, Auburn, and Mississippi State. Joining me today, our academic and athletic consultant for the CKA Save Project, George Ocker. George, any thoughts on the SEC this week?
I think the only thing that been surprising me was, and Robert called it, how good Vanderbilt has been here lately. And seeing as how they going with the transfer they had in there, that's pretty much it with me. The SEC is who they are. You got your big boys, and then you got everybody else.
And wonderful segues, sir. Our academic and athletic consultant today, and historian of New Mexico football, Robert Abney. Robert, any thoughts on the SEC today? And yes, this is your chance to crow, sir.
Diego Pavia, that's my guy, man. There we go. Vanderbilt 2-0.
Hold it. You just said Vanderbilt 2-0. I had to pause, fans. Go right ahead, Robert. You got it.
I got to get on that, you know. Yeah, Auburn, that's a bad loss for them. That's a real bad loss for them. I thought it was interesting how bad Oklahoma looked. I mean, they looked really bad on offense. I mean, I guess they look okay on defense. I don't really know because I mean, what do you got? But offensively, they looked really bad. That seemed to have been a theme this week. There were a lot of teams that we've had high expectations for that looked really bad on offense this past week.
Yeah, and speaking of bad on offense, we're going to go to the Big Ten. Underwhelming week. Good wins from Ohio State. USC is giving me pause. Okay. And Nebraska looked like they put a good game together. Lackluster performances from Oregon. But we said Ball State was good. We told you that in the previews. Penn State, what were you doing? And Wisconsin, Luke doesn't want to go back to Cincinnati because those checks clear. But they haven't overly impressed. And bad losses from Iowa. Running jokes, still can't get over 20. And Maryland, I'm sorry, guys. Y'all got to win that one. George, any thoughts on the Big Ten this week?
I think the teams that it's looking like teams that we thought we had some high hopes for are not really what they were advertised to be. It's the best way I can put it. No, I don't know if there's anything that it was that stood out to me. We just getting to see who people are, and there was nobody. There was no team that just jumped out there on me that I was like, oh, because they're kind of falling in the line where we thought they would be. So, might have been kind of, it's been, offense has been bad and there's been some mediocre play there. That's what it is. And like, we look at Nebraska, and I think Nebraska I don't know I'm really still up in the air on how good Nebraska really is, because I think Colorado's still suffering from the same thing. They have no offensive line to save their lives. So, we'll see. We'll see how it goes next week. We'll answer some more questions.
All right, Robert, thoughts on the Big Ten, sir?
I agree with George on Nebraska. They played a really good first half, and then I think the second half, they just kind of shut it down, I guess. I don't know, because they did nothing on offense in the second half.
I think the kid's going to be pretty good.
Yep. USC has some athletes on the perimeter. I can see them being a problem for some people. They've got some athletes out on the perimeter. And don't look now, just to throw it out there. But the Pac-2 are both 2-0.
Yeah.
Washington State and Oregon State both won last night. So
All
just
right.
And
We'll sneak that in
t-
segment 2. We'll sneak that in segment 2. Go ahead, George.
and I was piggybacking on that. Tech, Washington State just destroyed Texas Tech last night. So it was, I mean, and it happened quick. I mean, when you blinked and you turned around and it was already like 28-14, and they kept that train moving. So yeah, they can score. They always had Washington State has had offense since Mike Leach got there, and when he passed away, they continue to run his offense, and they run it better than anybody else in the country right now. So,
all right. So let's go to the Big 12. Again, we have to do this. We do this in the NBA with the Lakers. We do this in the NFL with the Cowboys. So now I guess weekly we have to do this in the Big 12. Fans, Colorado's not very good. Okay. The national media will make this a bigger story, but we already told you. When Deion got there, he had 1 win talent, and then he had 4 win talent. And this is what 4 win talent looks like. So we'll let the panel talk about it if they feel to do so. But again, they're not very good. So good wins by Iowa State and good win by Arizona State. Man, go Arizona State. That kid's like 12 years old. He's a head coach of a D1 football team. Lackluster performance by Utah. Utah, if you want to keep our attention, you got to play better. Okay. Oklahoma State, again, you want to keep our attention, got to play better. And Kansas State can't be hanging around, can't let Tulane hang around with you. And bad loss by Kansas. And yeah, Colorado, that's a bad loss because that's national television and you looked awful. Robert, give you first crack at the Big 12. What are you thinking about the Big 12 this past week?
I mean, that is a good win by Iowa State. I mean, that's a really big win for them. Kansas State, yeah, you can't let Tulane hang around. You just can't. You know, I don't think I think that win by Utah. I mean, Baylor, I think Baylor is not as bad as people might have thought they were. I think Baylor, Baylor's going to surprise some people. I like how they've looked. And let's see. Let me pick another. Yeah, you cannot lose you can't lose to Illinois, Kansas. You can't lose that game. That's not.
George, Big 12, man. What are you thinking this week?
let's the Kansas State situation. It just proved to me. It just proved to everybody how good Tulane was because Tulane got robbed. They should have won that game. That offensive pass interference that was called. I was screaming about it. You were going to ask Robert, and I was waiting for Robert to see if he saw the play.
I don't even know if you saw the play, Robert. Did you even see the play?
Oh, it was some trash. It was like, oh, let's keep them alive here. Arkansas is one of the weaker teams in the SEC, and Oklahoma State went overtime with them. So these two. I give Utah some credit. They're still on my radar as a big boy and as one of the team to watch because Cam Rising was out yesterday, their starting quarterback, and they won with the backup. So they did what they needed to do. But the Big 12, it's the shaping up the way where we thought we'd see the Big 12, and I know we're getting ready to talk about the ACC. Both are going in with maybe really one real contender, and the rest of them are just falling by the wayside. They're having issues. That's all I can say. We're having issues.
And thanks for the setup, George. ACC. Okay, I'm Coach Adams. Yes, it's week 2, but I know what bad looks like when I see it. Good win by Duke. Hey, 2-0. Shout out to the Moore family. Paint Branch love. Miami, man, I hope y'all keep winning because it's going to be you and Louisville. Good win. Clemson, nice bounce back, and strictly for entertainment purposes only. Way to go, Pittsburgh. Lackluster performance. George, what happened to Virginia Tech? You don't have to answer that, but you're supposed to be be something. And bad losses. Robert, SMU, you cried, you moaned. Now you're on the national radar, and you lose to BYU. NC State, come on, man. Again, I don't mind you losing, but you can't lose like that. And Georgia Tech, it just shows you how bad Florida State was. George, I'll give you first shot at the ACC. Any thoughts about the ACC this week?
Yeah, the hype around teams like Virginia Tech and stuff like that, where people thought they were bad last year. What made you think they were going to be good again this year? The biggest disappointment through the ACC though is got to be Florida State. Whatever's broken down there, whether it's DJ or whatever it is, to me personally, until they figure out how to stop somebody's running game, they are not going to win another football game. I mean, they have gotten hit in the mouth and a train run through them every week. I think in the 2 games, they probably are giving up probably an average of 100, at least 180 yards per game on the ground. So, that was the thing that was there that we didn't think we'd see, is them just get run over. And then just showing you how bad they are, Georgia Tech runs a mud hole through them, then comes back and loses to Syracuse. So, I mean, it's bad. And then the other contender, I mean, the other one we thought might be, people were like, oh, watch out for NC State. Well, man, come on, you got to show up on national TV again at that point in time. So, yeah, I mean, we're the one-trick pony right now. Miami looks like they're for real. We'll ride with Miami and see what happens.
All right, Robert, ACC football. What do you think?
That's a poo-poo platter, man. NC State, you got to show up, man.
Yeah.
You got to show up. I mean, it's not a home game, but it's a home game, right? You have got to show up. I guess we're going to wait and see what Miami and Louisville do, because it looks like that's going to be whoever wins that game. That's going to be their representative in the playoff.
And speaking of showing up, Notre Dame. First of all, shout out to our man Jake Sharler. He went to see the boss last night, and that's why he didn't come on. So unlike our football guy, George, Jake would have come on, but I don't think he's in any position. I think Bruce Springsteen still does 3-hour show. So he didn't want to mess with it. But as I like to say, I don't know who you can lose to, but you can't lose to a directional school, Robert, at home when you're the number 5 team in the country. Robert, talk to me, man. What was this?
Playoff teams do not lose to directional schools. I mean,
that's the new T-shirt. That's the new T-shirt.
And I mean, credit to Northern Illinois, because I mean, I only watched about probably half of the fourth quarter or so, and I mean, they were doing whatever they wanted to. They went for a 4th down and got it. They were running the ball on
South Bend.
In South Bend.
Touchdown, Jesus, all that stuff. And they was just running right down the middle.
And I don't know if they weren't ready to play. I mean, they clearly weren't ready to play, but I don't know what their game. I had no idea but that's a horrible showing. That's a horrible loss. And I don't want to hear anybody talk about Notre Dame anymore.
No. And I got a season-long entertainment thing going there. George, you know how I feel about preparation. They looked unprepared, okay? They look like they are still on the hangover. And as a coach, I'm drilling after wins, and I'm kind after losses. What did you think about Notre Dame, man?
I mean, to me, this is like a constant symptom of a lot of teams this year in college football. I mean, it's like they're reading their own press clippings. Like they don't have what we do and what we don't have to do, and and then they get into a game against a team that they we'll blow them out, and then they're in a dogfight, and some of them just don't come out. Because I watched this, the two games I was really paying attention to, like, was Alabama and South Florida. and then you got Notre Dame in Northern Illinois. And I got to give it, if we do put the T-shirts together, Robert gets all the credit for the directional score
everything,
because he had me crying yesterday with that. But anyway, the Alabama waited until the fourth quarter to actually wake up because South Florida was just putting it on them, and Notre Dame couldn't wake up in the fourth quarter. They had gotten too far down that hole to dig themselves out of. So, question is, lesson to learn for all these schools. Hey man, if you take anybody lightly, and you're gonna be in a world of hurt. Because when we get in, they're gonna bring it. Because these guys
and you know how we feel about Hope, man. Hope is DEI.
Yes.
Hope is equal opportunity. Once Hope gets in the building, back away and let it play out. So fans, in segment 2, we'll go group of 5. A lot of group of 5 teams are doing work. We'll be right back on the Odd Coaches Podcast. This is Dr. Keith Adams, president of the CKA Safe Project, with a question for you. Are you passionate about supporting student athletes? If so, then become an official member of the CKA Safe Project and make a difference today. With your membership, you'll be able to help us provide essential academic and athletic support to underserved communities nationwide. Join us in empowering student athletes to achieve their full potential, both on and off the field. Together, we can build a brighter future through education and sports. Visit ckasafeproject.org and choose your membership level now. $25 is a bronze level membership, $50 is a silver level membership, and $100 is a gold level membership. Be a part of the change. Become a member of the CKA Safe Project today. Welcome back. Welcome back to the Odd Coaches Podcast. In segment 2, let's go group of 5. All right, the American, good wins. Memphis got the win, but they lost a good player, and also Texas State got a good win. George, any thoughts on the American?
No, Mo. Memphis is. I don't have a question mark with Memphis, even with the light schedule. Are they even going to get through this? That's my whole thing right there with them.
And you know who Memphis plays next, sir?
No, who they have next?
Florida State, if I am not mistaken. So that should be interesting.
That'll be an interesting game.
All right, Robert, any thoughts on the American?
Texas State put it on UTSA.
Yes.
Party in San Marcos last night, let me tell you.
Okay. All right. Mountain West Pac-2, good wins. Washington State, Oregon State was mentioned in segment 1. And Robert, UNLV, when did they start scoring points, man? Congrats to the Running Rebels and friend of the show, Jason Frank. Any thoughts on the Mountain West or the Pac-2?
That's a lot of points. 72 points is a lot of points. It doesn't matter who you're playing.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of bad losses in the Mountain West. Wyoming losing to Idaho, ouch. And Air Force is not going to be what they were last year. San Jose State got them. So, we'll see what comes out of there. Boise State played really well against Oregon.
Yes, they did.
Really well against Oregon, and I mean they had a they had a bone to pick there because they are kind of neighbors, but. I don't know if Oregon was prepared for that. Speaking about preparation earlier, I don't know how well prepared Oregon was for that game.
No, and they have not impressed. George, any additional thoughts about the Mountain West and the Pac-2?
No, I'm going back. I'm piggybacking off that because we said that Oregon was going to be Boise State was the favorite there. But Boise State the 2 teams came out yesterday looking legit from the smaller conferences, and that was Boise State and that was Tulane, because both of them should have and probably could have wound up winning their games. So I don't see them being scheduled by anybody anytime soon.
And speaking of scheduling, Oregon State and Washington State had a little issue with the Mountain West Conference because the Mountain West Conference said thanks but no thanks. So next year, I don't know how they're going to work this out, but good luck to them moving forward. And let's go to Conference USA and the weekly Liberty won 30-24 over New Mexico State. Can't think of anything else to talk about with Conference USA. Robert, were you surprised by New Mexico State and how well they played against Liberty, or any additional thoughts on CUSA?
Well, I mean, the State was at home, so I'll give them that. But traditionally, the Aggie games are not very well attended. So, the 9,000 folks in Aggie Memorial might have been making a little bit of noise, but Liberty doing what they needed to do, I guess.
George, any thoughts on Conference USA?
No, I mean if you want to talk about one conference that's holding the chalk that we said was going to go, we said watch Liberty, and they're still doing their thing. So it is what it is.
Can't drink right now, fans. All right, Sunbelt, good win by JMU and Coastal Carolina. George, I know you watch a little more Sunbelt than probably us, so I'll skip Robert on this one. Any thoughts on the Sunbelt?
I mean, no, we knew what was coming. Robert's gonna have something to say, but JMU, the big thing with them, well, I mean, with the conference itself, the surprise was I am surprised by Coastal. Coastal has pulled out two big wins. I thought they'd be just decent, but it looks like they're gonna be more than decent. But that train down there in Virginia called JMU is still rolling. Is anybody going to derail it? Don't know. Texas State is still smacking people in the mouth, so it's going to be. It looks like we're headed to that showdown between Texas State and JMU, like we said at the beginning of the year.
All right, go ahead, Robert. You got some Sunbelt love for us?
Muted.
Georgia Southern went on the road yesterday and won at Nevada, and it was a decent win. Their defense looked really good. Offensively, they weren't great, but their defense looked pretty good. So,
all right, this is a fun one
for Georgia Southern. How about that?
There you go. All right, you get that on the OCP, and you also get jokes about directional schools. The MAC looked great. Good win for Northern Illinois against Notre Dame. And Robert, putting your admin hat on, you also got a check for $1.4 million. Go ahead and get that money, and shout out to Toledo. Robert, any thoughts on MACtion this week?
No, I mean, you go to the number 5 school, you win, you cash a big check on the way out. That's not a bad day's work, is it?
and your coach breaks down in tears in the post game interview.
George, that's a big win. And speaking of that piece, you're a former athletic director who actually had to have people come to you because your teams are so darn good. Any thoughts on the MAC this week?
No, man. I mean, there's nothing else to say with that Northern Illinois win right there. That thing, hey, that made the MAC season from the rest of the year.
Season.
The whole season.
They're on TV talking about Northern Illinois could host a playoff game. I'm like, slow down.
That right there is going to carry the MAC for the next 2 weeks. That's all it's going to. And you can't. The interesting thing is going to be what Northern Illinois looks like next week, because they're going to be riding so high on the cloud. Are they going to be able to come back to earth after that situation?
Well, and we all know that, once we get into, October or so, and we start getting Tuesday night MACtion, you're gonna have Northern Illinois and Eastern Michigan,
giant killer,
68-60 game in 4 overtimes. I mean, that's what we're getting.
All right, to close out, I have to give my love to the HBCUs. Good win from South Carolina State and Norfolk State. Howard, if you guys are bored, we love doing the magazine style show, but go check the ending out of the Howard Merrimack game. That was quite entertaining. George, I don't know if you watched anything with HBCUs this week, but that ending with Howard Merrimack was pretty funny. But you
Yeah, I didn't see it. I have to go back and check it out, but I didn't see it. The only
go
thing,
back and check it out.
the only thing is, hey, look, Florida A&M, at least they got on TV. It wasn't where they wanted to be on TV, but they were on TV, and I always give them credit because they are stuck in a state with some heavy hitters, and they play at least one or two of them every season. It
Yes.
just so happened that they had to catch Miami, and when Miami is doing their thing, it always confuses me when they play because they got the same color, so you got to know who's who at that point in time. But yeah, it was shout out to them for having the stones to take on those heavy hitters every year.
Yes, and that's how a guarantee game is supposed to work, Notre
Yeah,
Dame. You invite them in, pageantry, enjoy the band at halftime, let the kids play, but take this L on the way out.
that's
And
right.
with that, in segment three, we'll talk about our own power rankings before everybody else comes out. So, fans, stay tuned. We'll be right back on the iCoaches podcast. This is Dr. Keith Adams, president of the CKA Save Project and author of Finding the Balance, My Personal Journey to Academic and Athletic Success. This book is your key to unlocking the secrets of being a successful student athlete. Drawing from my 30-year career as a teacher and coach, this instructional guide offers a unique perspective on achieving success in both academics and athletics. With over 15 personal stories and insightful antidotes, Finding the Balance is a must-read for student athletes, parents, coaches, teachers, and administrators. Visit www.ckasaveproject.org to get your copy and start finding the balance today. Welcome back to the iCoaches podcast in segment 3. Here are our week 2 rankings. So one, top 5, and we're basing it on how the playoffs are going to work. I got Georgia coming out of the SEC. I got Ohio State coming out of the Big Ten. I got Miami coming out of the ACC. I got Utah coming out of the Big 12. And it fluctuates, but I'm going to roll with Memphis strictly for entertainment purposes only as our group of 5 representative, but it could be Boise. Heck, it could be Texas State. In the next 7, I got Oregon from the Big Ten. I got Texas from the SEC. I got Alabama from the SEC. Ole Miss from the SEC. Again, this is week 2. Missouri from the SEC. Tennessee from the SEC. Again, it's week 2, and we're looking at how people are playing. And Penn State from the Big Ten. And then on the outside looking in, USC Big Ten, Clemson ACC, Kansas State Big 12, Louisville ACC, and Boise State Mountain West. Remember, ain't but 12 teams going, folks. So there's going to be a lot of boo-boo faces, as we say in the wrestling business, when you know you're going to lose. George, any thoughts this week on your own rankings in terms of playoff seeding positions? Any direction you want to go?
Dude, I'm waiting for that, and I didn't think it would be like this, but that Texas Georgia matchup when they get to it is looking real good. South Carolina surprisingly might be a problem. I'm putting everybody on alert now. I watched that Kentucky game. They have a dynamic running back. Their quarterback is legit, even though he has the Urkel glasses on underneath the helmet. But it is, they're good. They are good. Everybody who had any thoughts about Michigan can stop talking about them because Texas ended that real quick. It's Oregon. I don't know right now. They're still a question mark to me because once we get into real Big Ten play, I don't know what Oregon's going to do because if that's the same team that showed up the first 2 weeks, they're not going to make it out of it. So I still got still looking for somehow that fight for those smaller teams between Boise, Tulane, Liberty, and JMU, Texas State. One of those are going to fall in there. Memphis, Memphis is going to be all right. Look, through the conference, we're saying, look, I got the fingers crossed. But if I put Memphis on the field against a JMU or Tulane or Texas State or Boise, they're going to get crushed. So it is what it is. So that's where I am right now with that.
Robert, top rankings. What are you thinking right now?
You are giving Penn State love, and it is unwarranted. So.
It is unwarranted. Exactly. I'll take the heat for that one. Yes.
No,
for entertainment purposes.
You gotta have USC in there. You can't have Penn State in there.
Yeah. That is acceptable criticism. 100% acceptable criticism. Absolutely. All right. Season-long bets, strictly for entertainment purposes only. SEC, Georgia, and Missouri are who we're following. Big Ten, Maryland, Big L, and Oregon's underwhelming me right now. We took the under with Colorado, so I told you they're not very good. And Utah, we just need you to play better. That's all. ACC, NC State, that was really bad. And SMU, that was really bad. Notre Dame, over 10.5. Now I'm in trouble. I'm already in trouble. Over 10.5. And keep losing UMass. In the American, Memphis, I'm riding with. USF, we said on the preview show that you need to be better. You did play better, but at the end, Alabama said I'm Alabama. And we took the under with UAB because I don't like Trindale. Sorry. I got a little Mike King Petty in it. Mountain West, Boise, over 9. You played well. And Robert, I did take New Mexico under 1.5, and they're back to not playing well. And Conference USA is all Liberty and FIU for me. Sun Belt, I'm only rolling with Texas State. And then good old Maction, Toledo, in honor of George. They're winning, and got to have a directional school. So I took West Michigan, and they're over. In terms of my weekly picks, last week I was 4-3. This week I'm 4-3, so I am better. I had Texas over Michigan and the points. Iowa and NC State both let me down in the 2-play. My 3-play, Colorado, Mississippi State, and Tulane. At least Tulane did what they were supposed to do. I have still yet to hit a 4-play money line, George. Oklahoma State, Oregon State, Maryland, and Utah. I got to get some wins. I took Texas in the over. And the funny thing about Texas in the over was that the commentator said that late touchdown really made some segment of our audience happy. I was that segment of the audience. So unlike the Brent Musburger days back in the day, it's not tongue-in-cheek anymore. Gambling's in like 35 states. So can't get mad at us. I took the under with Pitt and Cincinnati. And my upset, I'm 2-0, George, with the upsets. I got Syracuse over Georgia Tech because, as you told me, Georgia Tech ain't no damn good. So moving forward to next week, games of note: Arizona State versus Texas State, UNLV versus Kansas, Arizona versus Kansas State, Alabama versus Wisconsin, LSU versus South Carolina. George previewed that a little bit. Boston College against Missouri, Notre Dame against Purdue, Oregon versus Oregon State. I think they call that the Civil War. Utah versus Utah State. I don't know if there's a name for that one. UTSA versus Texas is not as sexy after that last loss. UTEP versus Liberty. And for old time's sake, Maryland against Virginia. Robert, is there any game next week or games that just catch your eye, sir?
No, I mean, I'm gonna observe. I'm gonna be on the road next week, so I don't know how much I'm actually gonna get to watch anything.
Well, College Football Network has like this drop-in show throughout the Saturday. They do live drop-in, so that's kind of how I feel, Robert. When I'm out and about, I just kind of hang out on that channel, and they take me where I need to go.
Yeah.
George, any games of note for next week that you're interested in?
If I'm not mistaken, they're going to play the Egg Bowl next week too, right? And Washington State going to be. I think Washington State play tomorrow. I mean next week, right?
That's the Apple Cup.
I mean Apple Cup.
You can check it. I don't have it down, but go ahead with it.
It's interesting that those they kept alive all those those old Pac-12 rivalry games, and they're coming up early in the season. You got some good games out of that. So there's some bad blood, especially that Oregon State game. Oh, that was oof. Hey, that's civil war right there, and it was because they got some games. So I'll be paying attention to all of those. I'll be paying attention to those. That Texas State and Arizona State game might be rather interesting. Rather interesting.
And if I'm not mistaken, that's actually in San Jacinto. San Marcos. I'm sorry, San Marcos. I think that's here in Texas.
That could be that's a setup right there. That's a setup for the Sun Devils. Let's put it like that. Set up for the Sun Devils. So yeah, that's where we'll be when we'll see what I like to see us getting into conference play. Next week will tell us the real deal behind LSU or South Carolina.
Yeah.
I thought LSU was going to be in the mix, and we'll see if they're going to be in the mix right next week. So because that's going to let us know what the deal is.
Okay, so on behalf of our Cavalcade of Stars, I'm Dr. Keith Adams saying thank you for listening and/or watching the Odd Coaches podcast, and we will see you on the sidelines. Till next time, take care.
The Odd Coaches podcast is sponsored by the CKA Save Project. The CKA Save Project is an industry leader in providing student-athlete academic and athletic support. From assessing student-athletes' academic and athletic skills to measuring and monitoring student-athlete academic progress to improving student-athlete time management and organizational skills, the CKA Save Project provides wraparound services for student-athletes from middle school through college. For more information, visit us on the web at www.ckasaveproject.org or schedule a free consultation with Dr. Keith Adams by emailing cka@ckasaveproject.org. We hope you enjoyed today's show. The Odd Coaches podcast drops new episodes every Tuesday through Friday on most weeks. Make sure you subscribe to the Odd Coaches podcast on Apple Music, iHeartRadio, Podbean, Spotify, and YouTube. Follow the Odd Coaches podcast on Twitter and Instagram at Odd Coaches. Follow Dr. Adams on Twitter and Instagram at CKA Save Project. In addition, follow Coach Mike Francis on Twitter and Instagram at Coach Franchise, spelled Coach FRANCHIZE. For more information about the CKA Save Project, please visit them on the web at www.ckasaveproject.org. See you next time on the Odd Coaches podcast.